Have you ever shared a small secret with someone you trusted? Someone who stood close to you, listened quietly, and spoke kindly only for you to later wish you had stayed silent. Because one simple sentence changed everything. We often believe that people who smile with us are safe, that those who listen to us truly care, that the people who work beside us will protect our words. But sometimes the closest ears are not the safest ones, and sometimes the softest smiles hide careless hearts. This is the story of a tired man who learned that lesson too late. In a busy city filled with smoke, noise, and endless working days, there lived a simple man named John. John was a factory worker. For 8 long years, he spent his life inside the walls of a large cement factory at the edge of town. Every morning before sunrise, he woke up quietly. He washed his face with cold water, ate the same simple breakfast, and pulled on his faded blue uniform that always smelled of dust and sweat. Every day was the same. He walked the same road, passed the same tea stall, nodded to the same guard at the factory gate. Then he joined the long line of workers, lifting heavy cement bags again and again, step after step, while loud machines screamed without rest. John's hands were rough, his shoulders were stiff, his back ached almost every night, but he rarely spoke about it. He believed honest work was a blessing, and silence was strength. He told himself that many people lived harder lives than his. At home, a small family waited for him. His wife managed the house carefully, counting every coin. And his young daughter ran to him every evening, hugging his dusty legs without caring about the grey powder on his clothes. Those hugs were everything. They were the reason John never complained, never shouted, never thought about leaving his job. At the factory, John was known as a quiet and loyal worker. He never argued, never arrived late, never caused trouble. Because of this, he trusted the people around him, especially his co-workers, the men he saw every day, shared meals with during breaks, and worked beside for long hours. One of them was a man named Mike. Mike had a friendly face. He laughed loudly. He often asked about John's family. He spoke as if he truly cared. Slowly, John began to believe Mike was someone he could trust. But inside John's body, something was changing. The work was heavy. The days were long. Recently, his strength felt weaker than before. By afternoon, his legs trembled. His mind felt tired from the endless noise and repetition. Still, he felt no anger toward the factory, and no hatred toward his boss. He only wished for one lighter day, one small break, just enough to let his body recover. One evening, after an especially hard shift, the cement bags felt heavier than usual. His back burned with pain. As the sun sank low in the sky, John walked home beside Mike. Near the factory gate, John stopped. He took a deep breath. And for the first time in years, he spoke words he had never said out loud. He said his bones were aching, that the loading work was becoming too hard for him, and that maybe, just maybe, he would ask the supervisor for lighter work for one day. Just one day. He did not say he hated the job. He did not say he wanted to quit. There was no anger in his voice, only honesty and quiet hope. Mike nodded. He placed a hand on John's shoulder. He said he understood. He said everyone gets tired. Hearing that made John feel lighter, because being heard felt like relief. And he believed he had shared his burden with a friend. What John didn't know was that Mike enjoyed feeling important. He enjoyed having news. He enjoyed attention. The very next day, during the morning break, workers gathered near the tea stall. Mike leaned close to another worker and spoke in a low voice. He said John was unhappy, that he couldn't handle the work anymore. The worker looked surprised and asked if John planned to leave. Mike shrugged. Maybe he's fed up, he said. And just like that, the truth began to bend. Tiredness became unhappiness. A wish for rest became a desire to quit. As the hours passed, the words moved from mouth to mouth. Each person added a little fear, a little imagination, a little drama. By the end of the day, the story no longer belonged to John. By the next morning, it had grown beyond control, moving faster than John's tired body ever could. One worker said John was planning to quit. Another said he was spreading negativity. Soon, a floor manager heard that John was becoming a problem. Worried about his own position, he passed the fear upward. The words changed again. By the time they reached the shift supervisor, John was no longer tired. He was dangerous. When the story finally reached the senior manager, it was filled with panic and blame. No one stopped to ask John himself. Because rumors are easier than truth, the story eventually reached Mr. Henderson, the factory owner. He was a proud man. He valued loyalty above all. Already worried about money and unrest, he heard only one thing: John was a threat. A worker planning to leave. A man who might convince others to follow. He didn't see a tired worker. He imagined rebellion, and in his anger, he decided an example must be made. The next morning, John arrived as usual. He greeted the guard, punched his time card, picked up his gloves. He had no idea his life was about to change. Before reaching his work area, 2 security guards stopped him. They asked him to follow them. Inside the office, he was accused without warning. Betrayal, negativity, planning to harm the factory. John tried to explain calmly. He said he only asked for lighter work for one day. But his words were useless. The decision had already been made. He was fired on the spot. His final pay was placed on the table. His name quietly marked as unwanted in nearby factories. As he walked out through the factory gate he had passed for years, whispers followed him like shadows. In the days that followed, the story grew darker. People said John was stealing, that he was dangerous, that he couldn't be trusted. Everywhere he went to ask for work, doors closed before he could speak. At home, his wife watched him grow quieter. His daughter stopped asking when he would return to work. Bills piled up, savings disappeared, and the man who once believed the world was mostly good began to understand how quickly trust can be destroyed. After many sleepless nights, John made a quiet decision, not out of anger, out of exhaustion. One early morning, before the city fully woke, he packed a small bag. He kissed his sleeping daughter on the forehead, and he left the city, searching for work in a place where his name was still clean. Weeks later, while checking old security footage for an unrelated matter, a factory manager noticed something. In John's final days, he worked alone. He spoke to no one, showed no anger, no secret meetings, only silent labor. A heavy truth settled in his chest. When he finally asked Mike what John had really said, the answer came out quietly. John was just tired. He had only asked for lighter work for one day. When this truth reached Mr. Henderson, regret followed. But regret came too late. John was already gone. His place at the factory was empty. His name nothing more than a quiet reminder of a mistake made too easily. And so this story leaves us with a simple lesson. Not everyone who listens truly cares. Words once spoken cannot be taken back. And sometimes silence is protection, because sharing your pain with the wrong person can turn honesty into horror. And wisdom is not only knowing what to say, but knowing when to keep your struggles safe within your heart.